Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream. My name is Kat Huang. I'm a teaching artist here at Art Prof, and I'm joined today by fellow teaching artist, Eloise Sherrid. Today, we are talking about advice for new art school students. If you want to nerd out about art, Art Prof has everything you need, from tutorials to critiques to a community of fellow art nerds. So Eloise, I know when I was entering art school, it was just this totally unknown world, and I was scared. And I was feeling a lot of emotions because I was basically the first person I knew going into art school personally. None of my other friends applied, or they applied but weren't seriously considering going to art school, and I was the only one who went, ultimately. So I want to know what you felt as an incoming freshman to art school.
Oh gosh, I was so excited and completely intimidated by the skills of all the people who I saw in like the incoming freshman Facebook group. Like I went and like stalked everyone's work. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so behind. What am I gonna do? But yeah, I got over that.
Yeah, I think I was also very intimidated too, because nowadays people share their work on Facebook. Like there is a page probably for incoming students that you can join. And through there, you can virtually meet your future classmates. And it's kind of strange because some of these, like looking back on it years from then, I was talking to future like classmates, future friends, future frenemies. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, so fun side story is that I actually met fellow art prof teaching artist Lauren Welch through the incoming freshman Facebook group at for RISD, because she was an upperclassman who was like commenting on the incoming freshman Facebook group, and I like messaged her. I was like, "You look really cool. Hi, I want to be like you."
Little did you know it would spark a lifelong friendship.
Basically. But anyway, Kat, I mean, what is that like? Was there anything that you wish you had known as an incoming freshman that if you could go back in time and tell yourself, you would go back in time and tell yourself?
Yeah. I honestly felt that I lacked a lot of research. Like I wasn't sure what to research. I thought, oh, I'm going to art school. I'm going to figure it out when I get there. And, I did do that, but I feel like I could have prevented a lot of roadblocks if I had just looked up campus resources and things like that beforehand, such as like, are there programs that I like? Are there activities that I like? Is there a resource for mental health help on campus and things like that? What about you, Eloise?
I mean, going off of what you just said, I definitely would recommend folks like Google, or go onto the website and find out if there are like student organizations that you can join to help find your community more quickly, and so that you also have a support network and also a place to blow off some steam, because college can get very, very, very stressful very quickly. And I think that if you don't have that like network in place in order to help take care of yourself, it can get really isolating.
Yeah. I think there was one thing that I did do before going into art school that really helped me was I managed to track down an alum, or sorry, not an alum. They're an alum now, but back then they were an older student. And I was reaching out to these older students saying, hey, I'm an incoming freshman. Is there anything you should recommend? Like everything from food and housing to activities to do around campus to what classes I should take and what teachers I should have in my experience at art school. And I ended up finding one older student who ended up being my mentor. And what was really nice about this student was that they answered all my questions, like no problem, over the internet, but we also met up. And it was just these small things that helped me feel welcomed at the school, that helped me feel less afraid, and also ended up giving some really, really good advice down the road. Eloise, did you have a mentor of sorts?
I did, and it was really helpful to be able to talk to them about both specifics and generalities. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Things in general. Because I had a huge amount of trouble like picking my major, and it was really important and we had to do that very rapidly. We had to do that second semester freshman year. And so I had to like cultivate a group of upperclassmen who I could ask a billion questions to about the different majors. And so along the way, I ended up establishing these relationships where people would be like, oh, and watch out for that professor. Or if you're interested in this kind of work, you should check out this professor or follow that, and so forth. I just want to quickly, quickly say, just Paula Landhart, I think, asks if we know something about studying art in Germany. We should probably clarify that Kat and I are both definitely speaking in general from the American context. Some of what we have to say will probably apply to other countries' education systems, but we don't personally have experience with that, unless you do, Kat.
I don't have experience being in European education system, but I know some generalities of application process of European schools, and they vastly differ from American schools. So
ignore everything I said.
But some things that we're saying here are very applicable to not just art schools, but just schools in general. Like if you're a new student, if you're a new kid at school, it's hard and it's scary. So some of the advice here is applicable, but also take it with a huge chunk of salt, a huge grain of salt.
But like Blue Wolf Spirit said, do join our Discord and ask around on the various channels, because there might be someone who does have experience in with the German education system.
Right.
But back to what we were talking about with students who would like advise on specific issues. Kat, was there like a specific instance where there was something like that, where an older student helped steer you in a specific direction?
Absolutely. So the mentor I had was very good for my purposes because they were in the track I wanted to take. They were an illustration student, and I knew I wanted to be in illustration. And so I asked the student if there were any classes I should take that they would recommend, anything I should avoid, blah, blah, blah. They gave me a few pointers on professors to avoid for the track I wanted to take, the kind of artwork I wanted to make. But the most valuable and also life-changing thing this mentor did for me was recommend I take a certain comics class. And you guys probably know from my work, all I do is comics now. But back then, I never did comics. I had never done a comic in my life. And I thought, interesting. So you're recommending I take this comics class, even though I've never taken comics before. Sure, why not? It seems fun. And that ended up being a life-changing class. And the professor was great. I loved the work, and it's what I do all the time now.
And I think going off of that, this idea of in general looking for good classes and good professors and not necessarily picking classes based off of like what the actual subject matter is, because something that Professor Lieu says a lot is a good professor will make you love a subject even if you've never been interested in it before, whereas a bad professor will make you hate something that you love.
Right. I absolutely agree with Clara and your sentiment, Eloise. I think overall this is also a good lesson of make sure you research your professors beforehand. I know that there's ratemyprofessor.com and sites like that, but I feel like those sites, although they can be very interesting to read, they're not completely the truth either, because either a student really hates a professor or absolutely adores a professor. Only these students will write on ratemyprofessor.com. But if you ask around, if you ask older students, if you ask, I don't know, like the campus office resource, I'm sure they would know professor specialties and also know what kind of people they are. And through that, you can research your professors.
Mm-hmm. I think that, oh, wait, whoops. Sorry, we've gone, I have that. Okay. Blue Wolf Spirit wants to know if activities are curtailed this year due to the Rona.
Go ahead.
The answer is yes. Across the board, it does seem like every university or college has been experiencing major changes to their curriculum. At the very least, they're doing things remotely. Oh, sorry. At the most, they're doing things remotely. At the very least, they're doing things in a fusion context. And with that, I would say it's also completely valid for you if you're an incoming student trying to make the decision about whether to go to college this year. I think it's also worth saying that it's 100% okay for you to look at where you're at and decide that you want to take a gap year and maybe wait for the environment to change, or maybe if the environment isn't going to give you what it is that you need in this current time of crisis. I think that's a valid decision to make.
Yeah, I agree with Eloise. And it's totally dependent on each student's situation. Some students might be adamant about starting art school now. And for that, I say go for it if you really are sure that you want to do that. But I want to also present the flip side in that art school is very much, how do you say this, visceral experience, like an in-person experience. Visceral might not be the word I'm looking for. Somebody in the chat, tell me what word I'm looking for.
But it's a experience that requires a certain amount of concrete interaction.
Right. Kinesthetic experience.
Somatic.
Yes.
Tactile.
Thank you. But yeah, that is a very important aspect of art school. I don't want any incoming students to forget that. And if you feel like that is something you need in your education, in your art school experience, I'd say don't be afraid to take that gap year if that's what you decide.
Agreed. Another thing, though, for whether you are starting your semester in this remote context or whether you're going to be able to be on campus, is to just remember that if you're coming in as a freshman or you're going into your sophomore year, maybe as a transfer student or what have you, do not worry about finding a job immediately. Do not build your at least your early education around the job hunt.
Right.
Kat, did you know people who did that?
Oh my gosh, did I know people like that? Ultimately, I knew a few people in freshman year that were like, job, 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 the whole time when they started art school. And in my head, I thought, we haven't even established ourselves as artists yet. We don't even know what we're going to do. We have 4 years ahead of us, or maybe a little less if you're a transfer student. And you have to first know yourself before you go out looking for these professional opportunities, because these professional opportunities are also looking for a very particular person. And you need to really develop yourself before you search for these things. Eloise, did you know people like that?
Oh, I mean, I think I was kind of that person. And I can testify that it's not healthy. Because instead of being open to the ways that you yourself might change, who I was as a freshman in my undergrad is completely different from who I was, even like from the first semester to the second semester. So, and what I would have been looking for from a job, or like this idea of preparing myself for the job market, is just completely unapplicable to where I ended up going. So, yeah.
I think when you start out with art school, or, you know, your whole process in art school, you're searching for who you are as both an artist, and also you're developing as a person yourself. So worry about those job opportunities later, once you have something more concrete down. And things that will help you become more concrete are, first of all, your own work, your own stuff, but also the environment around you. Do you have friends? Do you go outside of campus? Do you experience life a little bit? Ultimately, when you start out at art school, friends are a huge factor to your practice. What do you think, Eloise?
Absolutely. One of the things that we talk about a lot at Art Prof, it's sort of one of the recurring things that we always say, is find your network of people who can give you solid advice. And when you're all living together, it's also people who can give you emotional advice, people who can help you through all of the new first experiences that you're going to have attending school at this level or for this kind of thing for the first time. And you want people who you can feel safe pushing boundaries with. And also, another important thing I would say as an incoming freshman, understand that some of the friendships you make early on are not necessarily the ones that will last, and that's okay. It's okay to have people who are your friends during orientation or during the first couple of months, and then you decide that once you get to know them a little better, you can go your separate ways. It's not the end of the world.
Absolutely. I definitely had friendships in freshman year where we sort of clung together because we were the closest person next to each other. I met all of them through orientation. And ultimately, those friendships weren't the ones that lasted. And that's totally fine too. Friendships come and go. And ultimately, you'll grow as a person no matter what situation you find yourself in. I also want to add the fact that friendships are important, but so are friendships with students, but so are friendships forged, or at least relationships forged with people around campus, such as, I don't know, the artist models who are modeling for you, or the people who are taking care of the facilities, or students or TAs and stuff like that. And it's really important to be nice to everyone you meet at art school because they're so relevant to what you do and who you become later.
Definitely. And I mean, you should just be nice to people in general.
Yeah.
Generally, one should be polite in general. But also in terms of helping you navigate your time at art school, you never know when sometimes advice will come from the strangest places. I know that my freshman year at school was also having like a very difficult emotional time, and it was one of the ladies who worked in one of the dining halls who noticed that I was feeling so badly and ended up giving me like a really important pep talk and making me feel less alone.
That's actually really interesting, Eloise, because I have a similar experience with the cafeteria lady.
I wonder if it was one of the same. I wonder if it was the same lady.
Not sure.
Oh, Jordan is with us. Hi, Jordan. Jordan, the art prof TA. About the workload, another important thing I would say is all-nighters are not worth it.
Did you pull an all-nighter that wasn't worth it, Eloise? Tell us more about it.
I pulled like 50. And now I'm old and tired. I burnt through it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But Kat, what's the culture around all-nighters in art schools?
I mean, it depends from art school to art school, but I think a general consensus is that sometimes people wear it like a badge of honor. They say, I pulled an all-nighter, therefore I worked very hard on this project, therefore I should get a good critique. That's trash. Sorry.
Tell us how you feel.
I just feel that pulling an all-nighter is a sign of no time management skills, because that all-nighter, that kick to your health is not worth like a better critique or anything like that. And if you pull an all-nighter for a better critique or a better project, I don't think the quality of art is going to be very good when you yourself are not in tip-top shape. I also pulled many all-nighters at my time at art school, and I can tell you, I just felt terrible at the end, and I didn't get good critiques all the time anyways. And so ultimately, I just learned I should just sleep.
There's also a culture that puts a lot of pressure on people to do that. It's not just that it's a badge of honor. There's also this, I didn't see you working in the studio as late as possible, or, like the professor might imply that your work needs to come before your health and other aspects of your well-being.
Mm.
And that's definitely something I found I wish I'd had someone who could tell me before I went in that was something to be careful of, to be cautious about.
Right.
I think, did you have professors, or did you find there to be a culture like that?
Oh yeah, it was very prevalent in the art school I went to. And it got to the point that it was kind of ridiculous. Like at one point, somebody brought in a project that was great. It got a great critique. Everyone loved it. But then there were some unfortunate beings in the class who were like, oh, but I don't think they worked that hard on it. Like I was in studio all night. I don't get why they got such a good critique when they didn't work that hard. I'm like, they didn't work hard. They work smart. And that's a huge, huge difference.
Work smart, not hard. Yeah, and going on off of that, there's this another thing I didn't know before going to school, and I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about this, is the fact of the strange way that I felt that people rated one another.
Mm.
People respected one another based on the perceived quality of their work.
Mm.
Did you find that to be the case for you?
Yeah, that was definitely something that happened around campus, that happened in the school culture. I feel very blessed in that I've found friends who I liked as people. And I don't think their quality or quantity of work had to do with the fact that I liked them as friends. And the fact that I could have these wholesome, healthy friendships made all of our works better, because then we genuinely cared about each other. We genuinely cared that we did well together and stuff like that. I know there were some people who wanted to befriend other people just because their work was good, or maybe they had that internet clout, like someone who has a lot of followers on Instagram. Oh my gosh, let's go be friends with that person. I don't think that person will appreciate you being their friend just because they have clout. What do you think, Eloise?
And I absolutely. And I also think that in the interest of, like we were talking about, creating support network, creating and finding community, that's not how you find it. That's not how you build it. It has to be genuine.
Right.
People can tell when you are coming up to them because they have clout, or if they know and they don't care, then maybe they're not people who are going to be there for you. Like maybe they're not the people who you want to be surrounding yourself with.
I want to pull up this comment by Erica saying, I feel like some art professors would do that to us and it's just bad for mental and physical health. I think you're referring to professors pressuring you to overwork and put your put your work before your health. And so this is applicable both to friends, your student body, and professors. You really have to sometimes step outside of art school culture and say, am I being logical? Does this make sense? Should I really be pulling this all-nighter just so that my painting will be absolutely perfect? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes you just need to not go with the flow sometimes. Be yourself. Take care of yourself. What do you think, Eloise?
100%. And I think that the thing you said about getting out of the art school bubble, art school mindset, is especially key, because there were times when I was a new student where I would just be so immersed in what I was doing. And then I would go a block off campus to a coffee shop that wasn't the coffee shop that was run by the campus. It wasn't one of the dining halls. And just getting out of that atmosphere gave me so much perspective and really helped me see things for what they were and get my head on straight.
Speaking of taking care of yourself and stuff like that, Eloise, did you suffer from freshman 15?
I definitely suffered from freshman 15. I'm also suffering from quarantine for 15, but...
do you want to explain what freshman 15 is?
Freshman 15 is when you go to college and you don't really know how to take care of your health, and so you don't eat super healthily, and you aren't necessarily getting all the exercise you need, and so you gain 15 pounds. I want to be clear that this is not a... We bring this up somewhat facetiously. It's more that, like, the point is not so much about the gaining weight as we care about your health.
Right.
And whatever healthy looks like for you. For some people, gaining weight is just something that is, like, completely natural, but maybe there are other things that apply as the sort of the thing that is not healthy for you in your specific kind of body or your specific needs. And that plays into all the sort of self-care tips that we've been discussing.
Absolutely. I bring up freshman 15 because people seem to know it the most. And it seems like the most prevalent across schools. Like, people like to call it freshman 15. But unhealthy habits have a way of appearing in different ways. For instance, in my case, I didn't have freshman 15. I had negative freshman 15. Like, I lost a ton of weight my freshman year at RISD. It was really scary, actually, because I found myself getting lightheaded. And there was this one time when I almost fainted because I didn't have enough to eat and I didn't have the time to eat. And that was sort of a wake-up call because my body just shut down. It was really shocking to me that my body couldn't power through all the crap I was putting it through. And so that was the time when I thought, okay, I really have to sleep, I have to eat, let's take care of myself. And just please know your body and take care of yourself, because whatever work, whatever all-nighter you're pulling, it's not worth it.
Erica F says, yes, I think it took me actually graduating and looking at it in hindsight to really realize that I was overworking myself too much. Totally. And kind of like we're saying, that manifests in everyone completely differently. Some people are gaining and losing weight. Some people are exhausted all the time. Some people have chronic illnesses that flare up.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just become like have mental illnesses that are exacerbated by the situation. I think it's really difficult to be in that moment and stay present and stay conscious and be able to like see things for what they are.
Right. And I think one big thing you can do is just get out of whatever thing you're obsessing with right at this moment, because whatever you're doing that's causing you to harm yourself, harm your body, harm your health, it might be a fixation on something. So maybe you're fixated on getting that perfect crit. Maybe you're fixated on getting this professor to like your work for once.
Mm-hmm.
And if that professor isn't supporting you, maybe that says something about the professor, FYI. And just going out, get out of the campus, talk to other people, take care of yourself.
Speaking of maybe it's the problem with the professor, Jake Gonzalez says, something that I noticed is that professors like to undervalue and tell you everything that's wrong with your piece. It made me very unconfident as an artist. What's your take on this?
I'll start. I think that being a professor is a very tough job. It's extremely tough because not only do you have to teach the materials, you also have to be a well-rounded person and also watch out for the disposition of your student in general. And so it's very difficult to be a professor. That being said, there are a lot of bad professors out there. And there are a lot of professors who maybe don't care about you, maybe are very unsupportive. And that can be devastating for a student. I would say in general, research your professors before having them. And also take a wide range of professors too. Like every professor is a person. There are so many people in this world. And really experiencing that range of people and finding the professor that's the best fit for you will really help you in your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is also why we were talking earlier about getting in touch with students who have been at the school longer than you, because they will be your guides and help you navigate the twists and turns.
Right, I agree. And students more than online sources, students more than office resources or anything, because they've experienced these things. They are, I guess, future you, your role models.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Mariam Abdal asks, how would you suggest to deal with the workload? So, any more ideas?
Dealing with workload. I mean, there are many ways to deal with workload. I think for some people it could be a time management thing. For other people, it could just be, I guess, an obsession sort of thing. Like, do you really want to do this? And are you lacking in it? Are you lacking desire to do it? Or are you obsessed with it? And judging that balance. But there are many ways. Eloise, do you want to list a few too?
I mean, I think finding something that'll force you to get out of the overworkload mindset. For me, it was finding extracurricular activities, I joined the martial arts club, and that was really important because it was time where I was like working out so hard that I could not think about homework because I was trying to like keep up with what I was doing in that moment. So it's all about finding tactics that keep you grounded. Some people, it's meditating. Mm-hmm. Meditating has never really worked very well for me, but it was the same sort of impulse to find something that would actually take it out of my hands. Like the activity that I was doing that had nothing to do with work was occupying my mind enough to the point that it would help me work off some steam.
Right. And also I would say finding different environments. And environments could be physical environment. Are you in a workroom versus are you in a classroom versus are you outside? Different ways of dealing with work can come from the environment, but also just the people around you and also what you're working with. What is your workload? I think something that we haven't mentioned just yet in the stream is what art supplies to bring to art school. And my advice for that is just bring all the art supplies you can possibly take, even the ones that you think you might not use, because ultimately you're going to find some excitement from doing that. You're going to find some change, you're going to find experimentation and growth. And I think that would also inspire you to work more and also help you discover other venues of art making.
Mm-hmm. And also, some of the supplies that you buy is going to last you a very long time.
Right.
The hammer that you buy freshman year might be the hammer you use to put up shelves in your third apartment post-graduation.
Right. My gosh. Oh my gosh, I so regret selling my kit of hardware tools like my saw and my hammer, because I use them a lot through art school and I could definitely use them after art school. Unfortunately, I had to make a cross-country move.
Oh, that'll do it. Moises wants to know if we have ever commuted to school. Kat, did you commute at all?
No, because I lived on campus for the first half of my art school experience, and after that I was a resident advisor, so I had to live on campus. What about you, Eloise?
I don't know if I would call it a commute exactly, but my senior year I did live off campus, and I lived off campus far enough away that I had about a 20-minute bike ride to get to campus. I thought it was a really good arrangement, just because like we've been talking about with this idea of forcing yourself to create distance so you don't get so locked in that you don't have a perspective on the rest of life. Living off campus gave me that distance and helped me secure.
I do want to point out that there might be students who are coming into art school who live far enough away that they're away from the living culture of fellow art students. And that could be pretty sad for some people. That could actually forge some, I don't know, lack of communication, lack of presence with other students. And I do want to acknowledge that. I know that happened for some students that I knew. The fact that they had to live far away and commute a long time to get to school meant that they could only be present during class. And so it was a very different experience from living with your fellow art students, your art classmates, your friends. And to that, I would say, carve out time for students, for your fellow students in class to get to know them. And also maybe try also working on campus if you can. But I'm sure people will understand the fact that you can't always be there, that you do have to commute. And it's difficult, I know, but I'm sure people will be able to understand and work through it.
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Just something that I was going to say is that I think it's also important to remember that you don't always know the situation going on with other folks who may be your classmates, and that there may be things that are keeping them isolated from you that may not occur to you. And I mean, so for an example, like this question of living on campus, sometimes living on campus can be very expensive. So like sometimes there are folks who live off campus because they can't necessarily afford it. And that can be very isolating also. So not everyone will always live off campus because they want to be intentionally building that separation. And so making sure to reach out and continue to strengthen relationships and keep people connected for whatever reason is important. And that applies to every single relationship that you have going into school.
Absolutely. Clear communication, present communication, and also don't limit the people around you to communicate to. It could be your students. Sorry, it could be your fellow students. It could be your professors. It could also just be people working on campus, your local school librarian, the ladies in the cafeteria, or the gentlemen in the cafeteria, the people in the cafeteria. Just around. Forge those friendships. Build those discussions. And speaking of discussions, our prof has a podcast now. So you can check us out on Spotify or on iTunes. The podcasts are basically these live stream videos, just without our beautiful faces, just our voices. So if that's your cup of tea, check that out. Be sure to join us in the Discord in the post live streams channel if you have any other questions. We'll be there 5 to 10 minutes after the stream ends, so we'll check you out. Check us out there. And also subscribe to be part of the Art Prof fam. And thank you very much to our top Patreon supporters. Without your guys' support, Art Prof wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. And so thank you very much for that. And also, thank you for everyone in the chat for participating in this live stream and asking those excellent questions. Remember, if you want to keep discussion going, join us in the Discord and stay safe. See you guys next time. Bye.